Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we're privileged to have with us Jay Baer. He is the founder of Convince and Convert and is a renowned business strategist. He's a popular MC and event host, a New York Times bestselling author of 5 books, an advisor to more than 700 companies since 1994, including Caterpillar, Nike, the United Nations, and 32 of the Fortune 500. He's an entrepreneurial success story, having started 5 multi-million-dollar businesses from scratch. And the interesting thing is his Convince and Convert media division runs the world's #1 content marketing blog, multiple podcasts, and many other education resources for business owners and executives. Jay, I'm sure with that intro, you probably are exhausted just hearing it, and we haven't even done a whole bio that we could have done.
The show's over. Thanks very much.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Mic drop. But obviously, you know how to prioritize your time. Obviously, you have a team, and this did not start overnight. But, give us a little bit of a picture of at what point in your life did you kind of wake up and go, I kind of do this, thing pretty good, and let me start Convince and Convert, and then this content marketing blog is kind of taking off, and what triggered you to kind of build this empire focused on content marketing and customer experience that you have, and then, of course, you just slowly built it, and of course, the team and things like that, but was this what you dreamed of doing when you were a little kid, or was it the firefighter?
No, I don't know that anybody really dreams of being a content marketing consultant. Public speaker. Maybe some people do be a public speaker. I don't know. But I started off in politics and then got into traditional marketing, worked for the government for about 20 minutes, and then got involved in the internet almost accidentally almost 25 years ago. So really, really early in internet marketing, and had the good sense to stay involved in the internet. And for the first few years, I helped other people start businesses and operated some startups and things like that. And I always wanted to do my own thing and was kind of scared to do that, and decided to make that entrepreneurial leap and started a company called Mighty Interactive, which was a digital strategy firm, built that, sold that company, and then started Convince and Convert 8 years ago, really because the economic collapse right about that time, 2008, forestalled my option of becoming a college professor. That was my plan when I sold my last firm, go teach internet marketing at a university. And then we sort of had these simultaneous stock market collapse and real estate market collapse. I lived in Arizona at the time, so real estate market collapse is a bad situation out there. And so I sort of turned around and said, I don't have the kind of money that I thought I did, and so I got to go do this again. And so I started Convince and Convert. It was just me in my basement, and then I hired a virtual assistant, and here we are 8 years later on the Inc. list and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a very interesting, steady journey, and I absolutely love it. We have a different kind of company. It's all virtual. We have people all over the world. Everybody is a consultant, so everybody's part-time, 1099 contractor. So when I started this firm, I said, I want to do a company that takes away all the things I hated about other companies I worked in and preserves all the things that I love, and that's what we've built.
Yeah, what you described there reminds me of Pivot. You thought you were going to do some teaching, and lo and behold, you saw a need, which was, that glaring hole in the economy and whatnot, and then you pivoted slightly, but yet it was still in the same vein. So it wasn't, this idea didn't work, I'm going to go start and try this one, and 10 seconds later, that idea doesn't work, let me try this. The point is you knew enough about the industry to kind of make that slight pivot, and then once that momentum happened, then you just focus on that. And I think that's a huge piece that a lot of business owners feel like they need to do. So my question on that is, what's the difference between shiny object syndrome or squirrel and pivot in a good, sane way?
I think it's depth of information. You can see an opportunity, what you think is an opportunity, and sort of pursue it in a squirrel-like capacity. But once you see validation and verification of that same trend over and over, then I think you've got enough data to say there's a there. And so I think they're very, very similar. Sort of the distraction and pivot is separated only by amount of information at hand, if I had to frame that up. And I'll tell you an interesting story about that. So the reason this company is called Convince and Convert is that when I started the business, the idea was that it was going to be a conversion rate optimization consultancy. In my previous firm, we did a lot of that kind of work, A/B testing and multivariate testing, and how to optimize landing pages and get more people to click and buy and order, etc. And so I started a blog and started to write about those things, and every once in a while I'd write a blog post about social media. And about 6 months later, I realized that every time I wrote about conversion rate optimization, nobody read it. And every time I wrote about social media, hundreds of people read it. And I thought, I think the market is telling me something. And so I pivoted from a conversion rate optimization consultancy to a social media consultancy, and fast forward till today.
Well, and let's talk about the convince before the word convert. It makes me think, am I on the right track? Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So in one sense, you have to have an element of education and training for that target audience, target market that even, convinces them they have a problem, or tells them or educates them that there's a potential gap in what they're experiencing. And then once they're convinced of that you then can move to converting them because now you're the solution. Is there an element of that in the convince?
Oh, no question. That's exactly that. Good. And my love for alliteration are the reasons why it's called Convince and Convert. Because certainly back then, we're talking 8 years ago, 9 years ago when I got the domain name, it was not generally accepted practice to do the things that we do today. I mean, marketing is much different then. And I spent a lot of my time literally convincing businesses that this type of marketing is something they should invest in. And so, it is a very literal meaning of the word convince and convert.
Yeah, and you think of even entrepreneurs listening to this and thinking about their business. You see so many times on Shark Tank where the sharks will say, "Oh boy, that we got to teach the whole industry about this, and that's way too much work. You're a little early." And the point there is, it might be a wonderful concept and idea, but people's attention span is like, what do they say of a goldfish? Like 3, 4, 5, 8 seconds.
Yep.
And if you've got to spend too much time telling them why they ought to pay attention to it, you're losing them. And so I think that that's a really huge piece. And back, like you were saying, the content marketing, education-based approach was in its infancy, and now we know, why that all works, because Google loves content, because people, facts tell and stories sell. So I think that that's a really a neat story there on your company name. Hey, on your website, you say by 2020, customer experience will be more important to consumers than price. And I think that's interesting because you always hear the statement about, don't compete on price, compete on value. And now here's another element or a phrase that's talking about price with another perspective, which is customer experience. So can you explain why that is so critical today and moving forward?
Well, already customer experience is more important than price in some industries. So you'll pay more for a better experience in automotive. You'll pay more for a better experience in hotel. You'll pay more for a better experience in dining. But this idea that price becomes secondary to the quality of the experience is going to be the case in all industries relatively quickly. And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure and importance on operations and on customer service. And it's going to start to change the balance of power between customer acquisition and customer retention in businesses of all types and sizes, which I think is long overdue. One of the things I talked about in my most recent book, Hug Your Haters, is that globally we spend about $500 billion a year on marketing, and we spend about $9 billion a year on customer service. That's probably a little bit out of balance when you understand how important it is to keep the customers that you've already earned. And so we're going to start to see a greater focus on customer service and delighting the people who have already chosen to work with you, and I think we'll all benefit from it.
Yeah, I think we see that in a lot of areas, like the Nordstroms or like, the Ritz-Carlton or Disney, those kind of cliche examples. But I'm envisioning when this gains momentum, you know how a lot of marketers will do, the content marketing approach of, here's our product and here's a tour of our plant and here's, how we made the product and all of that, which is wonderful. It's fun. It's kind of peeling back the curtain. Well, from the marketing psychology side of future pacing, I can now envision a company just nailing the customer experience and customer service so well that they start doing this pre-marketing approach, which is using future pacing, saying, if you choose to become one of our clients, let me show you, or let me tell you what you'll be experiencing. First, you're going to receive a call from, and then you're going to get, and then you're going to have, and then I think that prospect is going to be kind of future pacing themselves to going, wow, you mean I get and be. And I think that they then can now start comparing that to the other 2 or 3 people that they're talking to, and they're just banging the drum of price or we're the best or whatever, and this will really engage them once you have that dialed in.
No question. It's what I talked about in my prior book, Utility, this concept that your marketing shouldn't just be a brochure because it doesn't tell anybody anything they don't already know or can't find out. We spend so much time advertising and communicating features and benefits, and it's a waste of breath. Somebody can just look it up and figure it out in 2 seconds. And so the best marketing, the most effective communications, the things that actually break through the enormous clutter that we're all faced with now, is marketing that's inherently useful. It's marketing that people actually want to receive instead of what we typically do, which is marketing that people simply tolerate. It's marketing that is so useful people would pay for it if you asked them to do so. That's sort of the test that we use in our company to determine whether something has real merit or real value. Is if you asked a customer, would you give us money to receive this piece of marketing? If they say, yeah, I probably would give you money for it, well, then it's good enough. And if they wouldn't, it's not good enough.
Boy, that's a bold move. I'd love to see a split test on that advertising piece because not many people are going to go sign me up for that. But it really is a neat thought, and I'm sure that in small focus groups that would be something to look at because I have seen and here's an example. I received a video card. It was in like a FedEx envelope. I open it up and it's about 6 inches by 6 inches square, like DVD looking case, and I open it up, and here's this video that starts playing, and it says, "Hi, Mike," and I'm going, how in the world, and it was like a 3-minute video, and it drove you to the website, and it was really interesting. Well, the point is that you might pay for that marketing because it was so unique and so interesting. And I think that that's what you have to keep in mind, whether you ask people that or not. You kind of have that as like the little dudes on your right or left shoulder kind of going, all right, I'm finishing up this marketing piece. Would someone really pay for this? And then if you're like, no, not really, it's just an email campaign. Yeah. So I love that concept.
Yep. Yeah, there's an app from Charmin, the toilet paper company. It's a mobile app called Sit or Squat.
Yep.
And it tells you whether or not a public restroom is clean or dirty. Essentially, it's crowdsourced. That's really useful. If you're traveling around, you're trying to figure out which gas station to stop at on the highway, that's really useful in a particular set of circumstances. But yet, if you look at kind of how Charmin markets themselves, it's television commercials featuring cartoon bears. I believe that they'd be better off saying, hey, let's take a little bit of that TV budget and tell people about this amazing app that they created, which is useful, that people will actually remember and keep on their phone and things like that. So we're certainly not all the way there yet in this revolution, but what we like to say is smart companies focus on help, not hype.
Yeah, I love that, and it really does take that idea of you could sell some product or service, and then you come off just as a pushy salesperson. But when you're giving someone something that has utility, like that app, and the fun part with that is it's what do you want to call it? It's remarkable. It's worthy of being remarked about, as Seth Godin would say, where people are going to talk about that app and go, ooh, have you seen that one? And then it becomes something where it's a conversation piece, but then it is also you use it, and you might send out a tweet from the road going, I just found this wonderful restroom using Charmin, thanks at Charmin, and then now all of a sudden, that gains that ground. I think that's huge.
Got it.
And, that kind of leads right into another concept, which is influencer marketing. And now all of a sudden, here's, the example we even just spoke about, which has influencer marketing aspects, which is, even on a small scale, you don't have to be mega big name to be that influencer, because social proof and your social network, if you sent that tweet out, you're an influencer to your tight network that follows you and knows you and likes you and trusts you. So here's this brand that is using that influencer to market because they're putting out something that's worthy to be talked about. Can you talk about how even some smaller businesses and entrepreneurs can think toward using influencer marketing, because not everyone has the connections to contact, XYZ big name person and say, would you, send out a tweet on my behalf? It just will never happen.
Well, and that's fine, because typically what happens is businesses confuse audience and influence. So just because somebody has a large audience doesn't mean they are influential. Influence means you have the ability to drive action, not just awareness. Because awareness doesn't actually get you anywhere. It gets you in the door, but ultimately you're trying to cause action. And so what is true today is that most of what we might call micro-influencers or citizen influencers or advocates in the industry, people who are probably your actual customers, they're the ones who in many cases have the most influence, because they have credibility on the topic that maybe a bigger name might not have. Yeah, more people know the name, but here's an example. If somebody says to me, Jay, give me a recommendation for content marketing software, I can do that, and I am influential on that topic. People will believe what I say, and if I say click here, they will click here. But if somebody says, Jay, what's your recommendation for a good motorcycle jacket? I can tell you what I think, but no one is going to actually do anything about that, at least not very many people, because they know I don't have a motorcycle. I've never talked about motorcycles in the past. I have no credibility on the topic. And so even though I can reach a lot of people, I won't drive a lot of action. And so every company in the world has influencers, and typically they're right under your nose. They're either working for you and or they're your customers. You just have to find them and give them an assignment.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it's kind of like, look at all my followers on Twitter. Look at all my Facebook friends. Really? I think too many people get enamored with those numbers, but what is it's kind of like, I forget who the speaker years and years ago said, but, your network and your relationships are based off of who you could call at 2 a.m. that would actually not only take your call, but, give you whatever you needed, hey, I need a ride, or whatever the case is. And, how deep are those relationships? Are they just, numbers on a Twitter follower? And I think that that's so massive, because right under your nose is a big, big opportunity for a lot of businesses. They tend to, not look at internal, because I think the stat still goes around. It costs you 5 to 7 times more money to get a new customer than when you already have. Well, why don't you dump some money onto your customer retention, but then take it to the next level, which is, hey, customer, let's maybe even you ask some things or invite them to some VIP closed behind the door, Facebook groups or whatever, to kind of self-filter them to go, these are my tribe, these are my raving fans, and maybe to those people you offer some type of a incentive, affiliate offer, joint venture, or something where you go, hey, when you promote us, we will, and what's the best way to promote something when some person has used it and loves it, and now they're influential, but you don't know that until you go deeper with your own customers.
That's right. There's no question about it. Your customers are volunteer marketers if you do it right. I mean, the role of customers is to not only, of course, support the business, but to turn them into advocates, to have them do your marketing for you. But most organizations don't think of it that way. They just sort of think of all relationships as transactional, and there's a lot more that can transcend that transaction that benefits all parties.
And I would submit that influencer marketing, as we just described it, ties into customer experience marketing, in that you could ask these customers that can be influencers, hey, describe what you love about every, from the first moment we noticed and we loved and we can't get over the fact that you guys, and now they're describing, you don't use customer journey and all those kind of buzzwords, but all of a sudden they're describing their customer journey, their customer experience, and yet now when they describe that, and maybe you have them get permission to use that and all of those things we have to do, but they become an influencer by promoting that customer journey experience to their sphere of influence, and now we've tied those two together.
That's right. If you do something that exceeds customer expectations, and this is where customer experience is so important, if you are faster than they expect, if you are more responsive, if you are more polite than they expect, you're friendlier than they expect, you do something that customers just don't see coming, what happens in those scenarios is word of mouth becomes involuntary. When you are in a conversation with somebody and they say, "You won't believe what happened to me," ...
Yep.
That organization exceeded that person's expectations, either in a positive way or certainly sometimes in a negative way. But in those circumstances where it's like, wow, I expected this and this other thing happened instead, that's where you are compelled to tell other people about it, either in person and or online. And in that way, when you do that well, when you sort of shock and awe your customers, it turns them into advocates. It turns them into influencers just because they believe the message so strongly.
And I would say that a certain percentage are compelled to do that on their own, and then another certain percentage, if the company asked them, because you know how so many people, they're willing to do something, but they just don't think of it, they're busy. But if that company strategically plans specific events like what you just described, I don't think you wait for them to happen. You literally have, marketing meetings talking about, all right, through the customer journey experience, where could we really shock and awe and wow this any customer? And now you're going to start tracking a certain number of those people that are feeling compelled to tell people, wonderful. But then when you go back a period of time later, weeks, days, months, and go, hey, would you be willing to? Those are the people that, of course, are going to say yes because they experienced that, real extreme customer service. And I think that needs to be part of the strategy. You don't just hope that it happens and then hope that they talk to someone. You've got to stimulate that and have that part of your strategy, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that you can't just assume that somebody wants to go the extra mile for you just because they gave you money at some point. That's not enough.
Yeah, because they've got a life. They're busy. And you might be waving to them as they leave your store going, hey, tell your friends about us. And they're like, sure will. And then they get in the car and they've got the 4 texts and the 2 tweets and the kids are yelling and in one ear and out the other. So you've got to figure out ways to facilitate that in a structured way. It's kind of like, do you get referrals by design or by accident? Well, we really don't have a structure. If you have that thing in place where your staff and you and your automation, are making these things happen, is it 112%? Nope. But it's probably a percent that's a lot higher than what you're getting now by accident.
That's right.
So I love it. I think that is awesome. I think that we could probably go on to about 17 more topics and talk for about a day and a half. But at some point, we better just say, Jay knows what he's talking about. What's the best way to learn more, reach out to you? Is it through your website, convinceandconvert.com? Is that the best place?
Absolutely. Yep, that's the best place because we've got 10 or 12 blog posts a week and 6 podcasts a week and a daily email newsletter, all kinds of stuff.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jay. We really appreciate your time and getting to know some of your thought leadership, and thanks for all you do in the industry.
Oh, my pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.